Hey all, we're back. I'm in the car again, on the way to another new day. Let's talk about the past. Um, it. I feel the need to talk about it. It's like the joke. I posted a cartoon talking about this. Just blame our parents and call it a day. But quite often, just mentioning the idea of talking about the past, it's like so cliche. Tell me about your parents. What was it like growing up for you, your childhood, but what I get from some people is no, I don't want to blame my parents. I'm not here to blame my parents. And I couldn't agree more. I have absolutely no interest in placing blame on other people in terms of I'm free from doing any of the work. It was their fault, and I'm done. Or as I heard it put really, really well, the fact that you are the way you are and you struggle with what you struggle with, it's not your fault. But if you're going to stay that way, that is your fault. So there is no interest in blaming the past, blaming parents and people for the past. That's not the goal whatsoever. So then, what is the goal? So there are a few different reasons why sessions in therapy and counseling would delve into the past. But let's look at one. Um, so much of our response to things that are going on in the moment have to do with how we perceive them. Um, Somebody cuts me off, or someone says something to me. Um, that's an event. The next comes is that I make a choice how I'm going to respond to that. I'm going to take it personally. I'm not taking it personally. The choices that we make about how to feel and think about the things that are going on in our life, relationships, interactions, something that somebody said, events that have occurred, that's all on me. That's my choice. However, I'm going to tend to make certain choices about how to absorb and how to view certain things that happen to me. I'm going to tend to make them in a certain way over and over and over again. And most of that is based upon things we've picked up and learned in the past. I've picked up certain messages about who I am, or about how other people will treat me, or about how the world works. I cling to them. I haven't really challenged them. And then those become the glasses through which I see everything and how I interpret events in life. So while I do have a choice, very often it doesn't feel that way, because I feel very compelled by many of these patterns that I've picked up. This is the life patterns work we do. Nevertheless, it's still a choice. However, typical cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Very popular technique in psychology. So cognitive behavioral therapy is very much let's track your thoughts. Let's be very aware of the thought processes you're having, the patterns of thought you're having, and how they then generate emotions. Um, it's not enough. It's very hard in the moment to say no to a particular thought, and the reason is because of the past. Where did you pick up certain thoughts about yourself? I'm no good. I'll never succeed. I'm not capable. People don't like me. Um, there's some deep patterns of thought, ways we think, ways we view ourselves that we picked up as kids. I'm not going into the past because I want to place blame and call it a day. It's very hard in the moment that a thought comes up that feels so real, it feels so right and true for me, because it's been around for so long and I never challenged it. And I'm going to say, nah, I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to, and you have all these, self-help speakers and techniques, and just be positive and challenge your thoughts, and, four different questions to ask a thought and challenge it. And it's not that they're not true. It's just we're all going to be very limited in how successful we're going to be in implementing it. Why? Because those thoughts are so deeply rooted. And unless we're going to start to look at the source of those thoughts, go back into the past and get a sense of where they came from, it's going to be hard to challenge them. Why? Because when we go back into the past, we'll see where they came from and how they're not quite true for us, or never were true for us. We were kids. Kids are naturally programmed to want a relationship with their parents, to idolize them, to seek out their validation, to connect with parents. And as kids, we look to our environment for messages about who we are, particularly parents who are very close to us. They're our first intimate relationship, which, by the way, is pretty cool that later on, as we have an intimate partner, we could go back, undo some of the messages that we picked up that weren't true for us, and we can gain some of the messages, like an intimate partner who is telling me positive feedback about how great I am, how good I am. It's powerful. A relationship with a therapist where there's a trusting, a trusting relationship has been formed, and the therapist is saying feedback about the capabilities of the client, or challenging some of the negative self-views. It carries weight because there's a relationship that's formed. But anyway, here we are in the moment, and thoughts are popping up in our mind about who we are and how to interpret things that are happening to us. It's really hard to say no. But as we look back on where did those typical patterns of thought come from, we'll see that it was picked up from parents. Some of it was their own stuff that they brought with them. If you look at the previous generation, someone told me recently, someone in their 70s said, we growing up, we never, through 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it was, we didn't process anything. You just kept moving on. There was no, let's sit, let's talk about it, let's analyze it. There was just, no, you just keep going. So people came into their marriages, into their raising of kids with stuff of life, but it wasn't processed. It was like not okay to talk about it. And those kind of things seep out into the environment, the home environment that parents would create, and kids are picking up messages. Not all of it is bad. A lot of it is good, but that's the work. There's no like post-high school year of getting to know yourself. I mean, some people do those programs, and I think they're the better for it. But after, having been raised in a certain home and picked up certain messages, true and untrue about oneself, it'd be wonderful. A person would take some time and say, okay, what parts are true and I really groove with, and what parts are really about others and not really about me, and then challenge them. Otherwise, we're going to carry those with us throughout life. So again, we're in the past for insight and awareness. When I see the source of certain feelings, I can see that they're not true for me. It becomes easier to let go of it and then bounce back to the present moment, and an event happens, and I start thinking my typical thoughts that I always thought for my whole life. But it becomes easier to challenge and say, well, maybe not. Why? Because I've seen where those thoughts came from. For example, a client I was messaging with recently was talking about their fear of abandonment in the moment. Friends are going to leave me. No one's going to stick around with me. This constant fear of people leaving their life. So, okay, let's do it. Let's go back into the past. And she was really hesitant. My parents are great. I don't want to blame them. And I explained this point. I'm not interested in blaming them either. And what did we see? So this abandonment is one of the really powerful, deep core, primate kind of life patterns. It's one of the first ones. A child needs to feel a sense of security and safety, and then they can move on to other states of emotional development. But what can produce a feeling of abandonment? Well, there's the obvious stuff, a divorce, parents leave. But what's less obvious and more common to people is where a parent is physically present yet emotionally not. And you have that where you'll have an addicted parent who's physically there but emotionally not attended to. That's where something is off. But here's an even more, here's a challenging one. I don't know how to rank it, because it's like the parent is a good parent, but a parent who has health issues, and that this was the case, in and out of the hospital constantly. It's not that they're bad. It could be very loving and caring. They're just unable to be there. Is it a death sentence in the end of life? Absolutely not. You have the other parent, neighbors, grandparents. There's very interesting research about, as the number of significant adults in a child's life increases, so does their resilience and their ability to handle things. In this particular case, the child was unable to connect enough with the mother. The mother was in and out of the hospital. There's no malice there. There's no, it's not a failure per se. There's just a certain sense of I don't know what I have a sense of, a certain sense that things are not stable, not solid. And she's carrying that with her into the present moment and interpreting everything as, I'm going to be left, you're going to leave me alone, even when it's not accurate for the things that are going on, in the current relationships. Without touching on the past and weakening its hold over her by looking at it in the past, it becomes very difficult in the moment to challenge those thoughts and say, no, this is a solid friend. They're not going to leave me. I try in my work in little ways to make sure that I'm responding consistently, timely, sensitively, building rapport, building trust, that I myself and my responses are not abandoning. I'm showing you a model of reliability. And anyway, it can slowly chip away at the hold that such a pattern has over a person. But this is one of the major reasons why I think we go into the past, is to help us in the moment, be more present, be more challenging, thoughtful, aware, making of choices. Exactly how am I going to respond to events? And I think this is necessary, because a lot of the solid self-help stuff and personal growth stuff out there will talk to you about, there's an event that occurs and you have a response to it, but it's the event is the event. How you choose to respond to it is in your hands. But it's not really in my hands until I challenge some of these typical patterns of thinking and feeling that hijack my response to events. And when I see the source of it in the past, I can start to discern what's true for me, what's not true for me. But at least it loosens its grip a little bit. I see that where it came from. I see what generated it, and not necessarily is it true for me. And then I'm more present in the moment. Now I'm better able to talk through an event that happened. I'll still make assumptions and choices and see events in a negative light for myself, but then I could process them with the help of a counselor and look through it and become more aware of, yeah, I did make a choice, or yeah, it is possible to see it in a different light, and do that enough times as you're also weakening the hold of these old patterns, these old glasses, and keep on working in that way, and all of a sudden the person will find, closer and closer to the event, they're aware of that other way of viewing things, until they're in the very moment, as they're about to make their typical choice of how to view something, they're already aware of another way to make a view, another way to view it, to see it, another choice that's possible. So here's one reason to go into the past, not to be passive, quite the opposite, to be very active, to have a chance to be present, to gain awareness and to gain insight that helps and aids me and assists me in the present moment. All right, we'll keep talking about patterns, and I got to get out of the car and get to my day.